Okay, I'd like to show you another simulator, similar in some ways to Packet Tracer, but this is called Graphical Network Simulator 3, GNS3. And just like Packet Tracer, you can add routers and switches to a topology and PCs, it isn't limited to just Cisco. You can use other network devices such as Juniper, but in this case we're using a Cisco iOS image. So these routers are simulating a real router, and we're running a real Cisco iOS image on it. And the advantage with GNS3 is that we can connect it to the outside world. So the simulator isn't just running within itself. We can connect the routers and switches to a real host PC. We can do that in one of two ways. The first method is by connecting to using a loopback adapter. Now, a loopback adapter is like a virtual adapter that you can actually create on your PC, and you can use that to link from your host computer to the your simulation in GNS3. Another way of doing that is actually by using the real interface itself. So I'm using on PC A, I'm using a loopback adapter, but on PCC I'm using a local area connection, which is my physical adapter. Now this means that I could actually link this to a virtual machine, so I could be running VMware and I might be running a Windows or Linux virtual machine to connect to this. So I could be simulating PCA with my own computer, and PCC could be a virtual machine. So it's a realistic simulation of the network. Now the advantage to that is that I can actually, instead of just being limited to using iOS commands, that I can do in just the same way that I can on using Packet Tracer. I can actually use a graphical interface as well. So I've got an IP address of 192.168.1.1, and as I say, I've got that attached to a loopback adapter. Router 1 is attached to a loopback adapter via this switch. Now I'm going to create a user so that I can connect to this. So just a very basic user. Then I'm going to run Cisco Configuration Professional. So I need to put the IP address of my router in. My username was admin, password was Cisco. So it's found the router. Now I can monitor the router if I want to. Or I can configure the router, so I can run various tasks like setting up a DHCP server. I can set up AAA. I could also look at setting up a firewall, or I could set up something like a virtual private network between two sites. So I could set up a site-to-site VPN, for example. So you'll see that because I can connect using a graphical user interface, what I can do using this particular type of simulator is much more powerful than the sort of task that I can do using Cisco Packet Tracer, which can only use the Cisco iOS commands to configure it. Now the challenge to using GNS3 is that you need to configure the adapters, the network adapters. So I've created some loopback adapters, and I would need to change the IP addresses accordingly to when I needed to use those adapters. So these are my adapter settings, those are the IP addresses I've set up on that MS loopback 1. And I might need to enable and disable them if I need to as well. Now I need to be administrator to do that. That means giving students access to the administrator account actually on the computer itself, so that might be a challenge. So we might not want to give students access to change the network adapters adapter configurations. So we might want to do that using some form of script, and we might want to do that remotely from the server as well.